Okay, good day, class. So, this is a recorded session. This is part two of your coverage for the first exam. So, last time we have discussed about the basics and definition of question document examination. Now, we would be discussing today about history of forensic document examination. So, of course, just like everything else in this world, the evolution of man is not a revolution. It's basically an evolvement of things which is circulating on the works and life of a man. So let's start with the earliest known recoveries or yung history ng writing. Kasi of course, hindi natin malalaman yung history kung walang mga artifacts, mga proof in which it could be dated back to the earliest known products of handwriting. Ancient period, unang naging proof drawings. Itong cave drawings are called petroglyphs. Yan yung product nila or petrograms. So between 20,000 and 10,000 BC, yan, itong mga petrograms, kasi marami to sila, these cave drawings or considered na mga artifacts, things, they are basically worded pictures. Of course, they were used to convey messages and to convey the lifestyle during the ancient period. Yan. So, hanggang na-develop sila na mas maganda at mas klaro na yung pag-carve nila ng pictures and words, which then they used it to convey what they think or even their location. So, those spectrograms, once they are included with certain words and certain pictures, yan, nagkaroon na ng mas vast na flow ng ideas, became ideographs. Yan. So, ang mga gumamit ng mga ideographs, yan, mga petrograms, sa mga early known settlements, especially sa Sumeria, yan, around the Middle East, mga Chinese or yung mga ancient Chinese civilizations, mga Mayans, mga Aztecs, and of course, as you all know, yung Egyptians, di ba? Kung saan maraming mga pyramids. Yung mga pharaohs nila, yung mga pinuno nila, used petrograms as somewhat legacy. Nagsisilbing legacy not just of nung panahon na silang namumuno, but also yung legacy ng kanilang kapanahunan. Yan, up until this time and age, meron pa rin mga archaeologists na nakakakuha ng mga proof na kung saan nung ancient period, around yan, 20,000 to 10,000 BC, yung mga tao nung panahon na yun already conveying information through petrograms. And yung sa mga Egyptians naman, yung kanilang word pictures are called hieroglyphics. Okay? Yan yung sa Egyptians. Okay? Also, yung mga words na ito, yung mga examples ng hieroglyphics, yung mga petrograms dyan, yung mga symbols niyan were constantly developing para mas ma-convey yung information, mas ma-replicate yung sounds, yung syllables na ginagamit nila noon. Kasi noon yung language, hindi tulad ngayon na medyo well articulated, and also hindi pa gano'n kalawak yung bank of words. Yan. So yung mga ancient individuals, they were conveying information through mainly sounds and yung syllables. Yan. And also, during the course of that period, yung mga tinatawag nilang sounds and syllables na phonographs, those represent word, which through the test of time has been constantly modified. Yan. So yan yung naging origin ng tinatawag natin na phonetic alphabet from those early sounds and syllables na ginagamit, which are called phonographs. Okay? So yan yan. Phonographs, the origin of the phonetic alphabet. So the phonetic alphabet, it is an alphabet kung saan yung characters na nandoon are intended to represent specific sounds of speech. Yan. So ang origin ng alphabet was on the present day Middle East. Yan, yung mga Sumerians ang nagsimula ng paggamit ng phonetic alphabet, which obviously was the birth of the alphabet. So yung mga Phoenicians, yung mga taong naging pasimuno ng phonetic alphabet, spread it out throughout the rest of the world. Yan, yung nung mga 18th century. Yan. So, nung 18th century, they were trying to expand yung create nila na phonetic alphabet, which consisted of 22 letters and was written from right to left. So, yan yung ginagamit ngayon. Most of the globe were using the right to left na direction of reading. May mga ibang bansa, just like Japan, kung nagbabasa kayo ng manga, yan yung kanilang ginagamit. Mostly, originating during that time. Pero ngayon, ang standard ng mundo, through globalization, yung left to right na reading. Yan. And also, yung left to right na writing ang ginagamit ngayon. But sa Phoenician alphabet, yan, yung phonetic alphabet, yung kagaya sa manga, yan, yung pagbabasa, pagsusulat, was from right to left. Yan. So, yung method ng pag-assimilate nila, kasi yung assimilation, it's like globalization, trying to influence other parts of the world. Yan. Other cultures soon followed yung Phoenician na pagbabasa at pagsusulat. Yan. So, it was from right to left. However, nakita ng isang kultura, specifically yung mga Greeks, na yung natutunan nilang Phoenician way of writing, Phoenician way of reading, at yung Phoenician, yung phonetic alphabet, nakita nila at around 8th century na parang pwede pa to mas ma-improve. At yung pagbabasa from right to left ng Phoenician alphabet is somewhat not in favor or hindi sila pumapabor sa ganung klase. So, they changed the direction of writing and reading, which kung sa Phoenicians, from right to left, sa kanila, from left to right. Yan, which right now, yan yung world standard. May mga ibang bansa nga hanggang ngayon, pati ibang mga kultura, mga tribo na hanggang ngayon right to left pa rin, but most of the world are using yung Greek or yung Greek and Roman alphabet na kung saan ang writing and reading is from left to right. Soon after, the Greek started to spread their influence about writing and reading, pati yung pagsusulat. The Romans from Italy saw that pwede natin to i-improvise din. Just like what the Greeks did to the Phoenicians. The same goes sa South America, yung mga Latin uh, words and the Latin alphabet was mainly derived from the influence ng Greek alphabet. Yan. So, yung mga Roman scribes, yan, invented yung tinatawag na lowercase letters. What are those lowercase letters? Yung mga maliliit na letra. Yan. And those lowercase letters were derived from those capital letters. Yan, yung mga malalaking letra. Yan. So, it made writing and reading much simpler. Yan. And also, it was derived by the Latin alphabet in order for the manuscripts to have different methods of reading, different languages, pero the same way from left to right. So, an example of those hanggang ngayon is yung Greek alphabet. Yan, makikita nyo pa rin yan hanggang ngayon sa bansang Greece, pati sa kanilang mga former territories. Yan, or even their current territories. Yan, yung Crete, Cyprus, yan, nasa dulo ng Mediterranean. So, the Greek alphabet still is being used primarily sa kanilang mga bansa, sa kanilang bansa. Yan. So, yung Greek alphabet was then improvised by the Soviet Union, yung naging Russia. Yan, yung naging Russia ngayon. They use what they termed as the Cyrillic alphabet. Yan, medyo unique yung Cyrillic alphabet at Greek alphabet, but the way of writing it and reading it is the same with the modern world, still from left to right. Okay, so yun yung naging history in creating the alphabet, pati na rin yung method of writing and reading. Okay, next, let's proceed to the history of forgery. So, the practice of forgery o yung pag-falsify or pag-alter ng mga nasulat or writing with, of course, intention, it goes back to a very long history. Yan. So, it started as scientists or yung mga researchers stated na noong 80 BC, yan, Romans prohibited falsification. Yan yung earliest known method of restraint ng isang civilization towards changing or altering documents. Yan. So, ang importanteng document noon hanggang ngayon for governments or mga civilizations is yung mga land titles. Yan. Deed of sales. Yan. Land titles. Deed of transfers. Hanggang ngayon is still a big ah, issue. Hanggang ngayon, kung yung mga documents na yon would be forged or falsified. So, by the time ng Middle Ages, yan, around mga 50 BC to 30 BC, yan, panahon ni Jesus, up until yan, 1 AD, yung forgery, yan, it started to reach a higher tone or yung higher pitch na ng pag-commit ng forgery. Up until this day, dumadami ang techniques, dumadami ang methods, and yung number ng mga na-forge na mga documents are somewhat impossible to count na. Kasi merong ibang mga bansa na hindi talaga nabibilang. Hindi nila nabibilang yung record sa kung ilan na ba ang cases ng forgery. Okay, so it has become prevalent which started at that time nung sa Europe. But nung 1562, ang Inglaterra or England has passed a law, a statute na sumusunod din sa ginawa ng Romans, prohibiting forgery publicly, but mas naging specified na yung mga documents na hindi pwede i-forge, yung mga official documents at land titles. Yan. So they used the power of the king at that time para mag-enforce ng batas towards the forging yan or alteration of those official documents. Okay? Yan, 1726, merong false endorsement. Yan, up until 1962. Let's fast forward to 1962 kung saan yung American Law Institute meron silang penal code model na kung saan mas pinadali nila ang definition at elements ng forgery and yung standards na dapat masusunod ng kanilang bansa at ng ibang countries towards the crime of forgery. Okay? So, yan yun. Sunod, expert witness and pioneers of document examination. Okay, when we say expert witness, kagaya niyang sinabi ko last meeting, an expert witness is a person who, by virtue of his knowledge and his expertise to a certain field of interest, and magte-testify siya sa korte and only limited to the findings or conclusions na meron siya arising from a process which he is expert to it. So, nung 539 AD, remember the Justinian Code? Yun yung inimplement sa Rome kung saan yung mga judges medyo binigyan nila ng leeway na yung mag-appoint ng experts. Yan, or mga specialists to a certain field. Yan. So, binigyan sila ng authority or ng freedom to give testimony in court regarding the genuineness ng mga writings na naipresent or exhibited in court. And then, during court proceedings, they would compare those signatures between genuine and yung forged. Yan. So, they allowed expert witnesses by the time na yung Justinian Code took effect. Okay? So, pumunta naman tayo sa United States. Yung kanilang mga batas na pinapairal towards forgery or yung question documents were also based from previous cases na kung saan nagkaroon sila ng modification for their laws. Okay? So let's take a look at some of those historical cases during the 20th century, yan, from 1900s o yung late 80s to the 1900s. Okay, so first is yan, yung 1894 Dreyfus Affair. So ang main na protagonist dito sa kasong ito si Alfred Dreyfus. Yan, a Jewish French military official na ang kaso niya is espionage. Yan. He was unfairly sentenced to espionage noong 1894 pero nalaman ng French military through their intelligence units na merong isang miyembro ng French army na nagbebenta ng mga secrets ng kanilang kasundaluhan. And they are selling it sa number one enemy nila up until World War One, the Germans. Meron isang miyembro sa kanyang kasundaluhan na nagbebenta ng critical information papunta sa kanilang kalaban. So, after a while, they pointed that itong si Captain Dreyfus was the perpetrator and that there are certain documents na nagtuturo na siya yung culprit. So, of course, dahil sa laki ng um, effect or sa laki ng kasong ito, yung method of trials mas pinadali and it became publicly known to the whole of France. Yan. And because of this Jewish background, yan, naging mas malaki yung rason ng French army to use it against him. Yan. So he was sentenced to a life sentence and was sent in exile to Devil's Island. Yan. So during 1896, a new evidence emerged citing that Major Ferdinand Walsin Esterhazy siya yung naging culprit at hindi si Alfred Dreyfus. Yan. So please take note of these key names. Aside kay Alfred Dreyfus, itong si Major Ferdinand Walsin Esterhazy. Yan. Still member ng French Army. Ibinulgar ni Lieutenant Colonel George Picquart na itong si Major Ferdinand Esterhazy ang culprit at hindi si Captain Alfred Dreyfus. Yan. Kasi natagpuan ng mga personnel ni Lieutenant Colonel Picquart na yung handwriting ni Esterhazy ay nagpuan sa mga documents which were originally found with Captain Dreyfus. Yan. So parang piname up ni Major Esterhazy si Alfred Dreyfus. But by 1896, yan, mga 2 years after nahatulan ng pagkakakulong itong si Dreyfus, a new evidence or a new piece of evidence was discovered. So of course, up until now, ang isang kaso na considered case closed could be opened again if there is a new evidence that would emerge. Yan. So at that time, na-distinguish ni Lieutenant Colonel Picquart yung kaibahan ng handwriting ni Esterhazy at Dreyfus. And of course, he determined na si Esterhazy yung culprit. Nalaman niya yun kasi kasama niya sa army. Yan. So, of course, naisiwalat niya sa korte. But by then, it was halted by some higher French military officials. Yan. Sinabihan si Lieutenant Colonel Picard na tumahimik na lang siya. Kasi kung hindi siya tatahimik, i-reassign siya sa Africa. Yan. But then, itong si Lieutenant Colonel Picard, gusto niya talaga na maisalba yung pangalan ni Alfred Dreyfus. So, what he did is, sige, mukhang itatahimik niya yung kanyang bibig, but then he would slowly leak words. Yan, magkakaroon ng leakage bago siya aalis papuntang Africa. Because he still resisted. Yan. So before he departed for Africa, para hindi na siya makakialam sa kaso ni Dreyfus, ibinulgar niya. He created a leakage and kung saan yung public nakaalam na. So of course, nagkaroon ng pressure against those French military officials and the French court to retry the case of Alfred Dreyfus. Kasi ang korte, takot yan siya sa public opinion. Yan. Even politicians would really consider public opinion. So dahil malakas yung uproar ng publiko at that time, tinry nila ulit yung kaso ni Alfred Dreyfus. So by the time that the new trial was started, mas maraming mga facts and events ang naisiwalat. Yan. So, maraming mas bagong nadamay ng mga officials. Yan. One of those, si Major Hubert Joseph Henry. Yan. So, itong si Major Hubert Joseph Henry, tinry niya na idiin itong si Captain Dreyfus sa espionage. 'Di ba yung original daw na nakita sa kanya yung mga documents na nagsasabing binigay niya yung information sa Germans. But then, itong si Major Hubert Joseph Henry, sa new trial or sa retrial, once na inopen ulit yung hearing, he then publicly admitted na yung mga sulat na natagpuan together with Alfred Dreyfus was considered forged. Yan. Sa korte, inamin niya na all of those documents na sinasabing handwriting ni Dreyfus were forged in order na mapawala sa serbisyo itong si Alfred Dreyfus. Yan. So, itong si Major Hubert Joseph Henry, even though na napawalang sala niya si Mr. Alfred Dreyfus, siya naman ang nakulong dahil sa kanyang mga binulgar or kanyang mga na-admit in court. Yan. But then, unfortunately, he committed suicide before his trial began. Siniwalat niya sa publiko lahat ng katotohanan and then a day before the trial again, nagpakamatay siya. Okay, so that is the story, one of those historical cases sa question document, yung Dreyfus case. Another one is, yan, nakalagay dyan yung murder at pagkamatay ni Bobby Franks noong 1924. So this was committed sa Chicago, Illinois, sa Amerika. A 14-year-old boy named Bobby Franks was abducted and killed. Yan. So yung killers or yung mga murderers, were known to be si Nathan Leopold at si Richard Loeb. Yan. So itong dalawa were considered at that time rich or yung mga nanggagaling sa mga wealthy families. And yung sinabi nilang rason sa kapulisan of the reason why they killed that 14-year-old boy is that they wanted to commit the perfect crime. Yan. Imagine nyo sa talino nila at sa yaman nila, naisipan nilang pagtripan yung 14-year-old na lalaki and then patayin nila because they wanted to commit the perfect crime. Yan. Imagine mo yung isa sa kanila may IQ of 200. Yan. Considered na genius. But then, he has this sexual practices or yung unusual conduct niya. Meron siyang sexual deviancy. Yan. So, both of those offenders were gifted with a brilliant mind, but then they use it on a negative way. Yan. So, they believed during that time, noong 1920s, na ang pagpatay nila kay Bobby Franks could exempt them from loss, not just because of their intelligence, but also because of their wealth, yung influence ng kanilang money. Yan. So they tried to test it and committed somewhat sa kanilang pananaw yung perfect murder in which itong si Richard Loeb sinaksak ito si Bobby Franks. Yan. So Loeb and Bobby Franks were distant cousins. Yan. So sinaksak ni Loeb si Bobby Franks sa loob ng sasakyan. Yan. After namatay si Franks due to loss of blood, tinapon ni Leopold at ni Loeb yung katawan niya sa isang swamp or kanang murag gamay nga river system. Yan. And then all other evidence na meron si Loeb at meron sila tinapon nila sa iba't ibang locations para naman mas mahirapan yung police officers at that time. But as they think that they have committed the perfect crime, pinatagal nila yung investigation, tinapon nila sa liblib na lugar yung katawan ng victim, meron pala silang mga nagawang mga pagkakamali. Yan, unang-una, nung tinapon nila yung katawan ni Bobby Franks sa isang swamp, tinapon lang talaga nila. But the thing is, hindi siya natago completely. Yan. Medyo nakikita pa siya ng public once they would put effort into looking for it. Yan. So, during the search ng body ni Bobby Franks, so sumama pa tong si Richard Loeb para hanapin yung katawan. Yan. So, when they already found his body, they found a typewriter. Yan, yung papel na merong typewritten na message. It served as a ransom note. Yan. Kasi pinlano pa nung mga perpetrators na kumuha ng $10,000 ransom. Yan, galing sa papunta sa tatay ni Bobby Franks. Yan. So, the policemen or the police investigators recovered that note, yung typewritten na note, and with the help of an optometrist, yung personal na optometrist ni Richard Loeb, natutunan ng mga police investigators na itong si Richard Loeb had only written 3 or has only been into 3 sessions with the optometrist. Yan, natutunan nila na isa sa mga words doon na ginamit were somewhat the same sa kanyang prescription kay Richard Loeb. Yan. So, soon after, nalaman ng mga kapulisan na yung iba't ibang mga letra na ginamit doon was written by Leopold and Richard Loeb, in which dahil overwhelming na yung mga ebidensya against sa kanila, kinonfess na lang nila na sila yung may gawa ng krimen sa pagpatay kay Bobby Franks. Next is the Lindbergh kidnapping case noong 1935. So itong si Charles Lindbergh Jr., he is a 20-month-old son ng world-famous pilot na si Charles Lindbergh. Itong si Charles Lindbergh ang pinakaunang piloto na successfully nakakross ng Atlantic Ocean. Yan. First male pilot. Yan. So, after his successful feat, yung successful niyang paglipad, yan, noong 1932, yung kanyang 20-month-old na anak was kidnapped sa bahay nila sa New Jersey. So, dahil sa kanyang kasikatan at that time, ginamit niya yung kanyang fame para magkaroon ng demands na kung sino man ang makakahanap sa kanyang anak or nagkaroon siya ng demands na galing sa ah, mga ransom o yung mga kidnappers na kung sino man nakakakuha yung kanyang note dapat magbigay ng $50,000 ransom. Ayan. So, yung mga kidnappers, gumamit sila ng ladder para makaakyat sa second floor ng bahay and then they kidnap the baby. Yan. Of course, may iniwan silang ransom note. But then, unfortunately, yung katawan ng bata was discovered malapit sa kanilang bahay at pinatay na ng mga kidnappers. So, it made the public and the law enforcers be more agitated. Mas binigyan nilang emphasis yung kaso ng pagkawala at pagpatay sa anak ni Charles Lindbergh. Yan. So they thought that it would take too much time to solve that case. Yan. But nung September 1934, isang gas attendant sa isang gasolinahan accepted a bill during the payment at sinulat niya yung plate number. Of course, wala pang computers noon, so mano-mano pa lahat. Yan. So nakita niya yung nagpagasolin driver ng sasakyan seemed suspicious. Yan. So once she wrote the plate number of the vehicle, it was tracked by the police officers and the result was si Bruno Hauptmann, isang German immigrant and carpenter. Yan. So they somehow saw the suspicion sa kanya kasi hindi siya masyadong kilala eh. Yung lugar nila Charles Lindbergh sa New Jersey is a close-knit o yung isang village o isang city na close lahat ng mga nakatira. But then the police officer found enough suspicion for Bruno Hauptmann. So they secured a search warrant and then they went inside this house on mere suspicion. Yan, together with the search warrant. So nagkaroon na rin ng duda ang mga police officers once they have searched the house and found yung chunk nung $50,000 ransom na dinemand nung time na nakidnap yung anak ni Charles Lindbergh. Yan. So ang alibay ni Bruno Hauptmann is that yung perang yon binigay yun sa kanya ng isang kaibigan at wala yung connection sa isang krimen. But besides that money na nakita nila ng mga kapulisan, yung testimony ng handwriting experts na nag-confirm na yung ransom note na natanggap ni Charles Lindbergh has the same stroke and has the same font style o yung pamamaraan niya ng pagsusulat ng letters sa natanggap ng mga kapulisan na note sa loob ng bahay ni Bruno Hauptmann. Yun. So yung ransom note, pati yung papel kasama ng money at yung iba pang mga papers, once they have searched the house of Bruno Hauptmann, made it a positive match na yung ransom note na nilagay ng isang kidnapper sa bahay ni Charles Lindbergh matched to the handwriting na meron si Bruno Hauptmann. So, soon after the search, they even found out na yung wood na ginamit para umakyat sa bahay ni Charles Lindbergh at kunin yung bata has the same kind of wood na natagpuan sa bahay ni Bruno Hauptmann. So yung mere suspicion nila turned out to be positive. Na kung saan nahuli na si Bruno Hauptmann as the culprit of kidnapping and killing Charles Lindbergh's 20-month-old son. Yan, another one of those, yung Clifford Irving and Howard Hughes biography. Yan. So, itong si Howard Hughes, Howard Hughes, he was a billionaire. Kasi siya yung may-ari ng Hughes Aircraft Corporation. Yan, hindi lang siya piloto, but he's a businessman and movie producer. Yan. So, during that time, merong plano na magkaroon ng libro or autobiography si Howard Hughes na isusulat ni Richard Susskind at itong si Irving. Yan, si Clifford Irving. So, itong si Howard Hughes, he tried to avoid the creation of his autobiography. Inavoid niya yung mga writers because ayaw niya maisiwalat sa publiko yung kanyang private life. At ayaw ni Howard Hughes ng attention. Yan. But then, those two individuals, to si Clifford Irving at Richard Susskind, were pushing Howard Hughes of creating an autobiography. Yan. So Susskind took on the work of research in news articles. Yan. At tong si Clifford Irving, nag nagkuha siya ng tulong or kumuha siya ng tulong from artists and a certain writer na kaibigan niya na magsulat or to create letters intended for Howard Hughes. Yan. So, ang inutos nitong si Clifford Irving is that kailangan nung writer na kaibigan niya na i-imitate yung mga authentic letters na na-display sa isang edition ng Newsweek magazine. Yan. So, ang sinulat nila doon is compliments kay Howard Hughes at mag-express ng interest para gumawa ng autobiography ni Howard Hughes. Yan. So, of course, nadamay na din yung publisher. I think those readers sa inyo, I think you would know McGraw-Hill. Yan. So, nadamay din sila. So, tinry nila sulatan si Howard Hughes pero hindi nagkaroon ng reply. So, ang ginawa ni Clifford Irving is that nameke siya ng letter na sulat ni Howard Hughes. Ginamit niya ang different sources together with his writer friend na mameke ng letter na galing kay Howard Hughes at directed sa kanya na gagawa ng autobiography. Yan. So, of course, yung publisher na McGraw-Hill was interested. Mayaman to si Howard Hughes. Successful siya. So, they tried to create that autobiography ni Howard Hughes. So, it was so successful na na-invite ng McGraw-Hill editor si Clifford Irving sa New York kung saan magda-draft na sila ng kontrata. Yan. But then, itong si Clifford Irving together with his friends, ginamit nila ang signature ni Howard Hughes. They used a forged signature ni Howard Hughes para maka-secure ng kontrata with a world-renowned publisher na McGraw-Hill. Yan. So, malakihan yung pera na nakalap nila. Yan. But then, itong si Frank McCullough, yan, is a known journalist and a collector of signatures and other memorabilias. Nakita niya na yung manuscript na binigay ni Clifford Irving sa McGraw-Hill, eh, pwede nang ah, maging considered na genuine. But still, itong si Frank McCullough, may pagdududa on the side of him na parang hindi tama na dinenay ni Howard Hughes yung offer ni Irving, pero bakit nagkaroon ng manuscript? Ayan. So, nakita ng iba na merong inconsistencies. Yan. And 2 years after, na-claim ni Howard Hughes na hindi talaga siya nag-agree or nagkaroon ng agreement between him and Clifford Irving. Yan. But then, sinabi ni Clifford Irving na impostor yung nagsasalita. Yan. But then, with the help of Howard Hughes' lawyer, si Chester Davis, nagsampa sila ng kaso sa McGraw-Hill, kay Clifford Irving, at sa Life magazine, na kung saan nagpalabas sila or nagpublish sila ng autobiography niya without his consent and with the use of falsified documents and a falsified signature. Yan. So yun, yung paraan na kung saan naisiwalat na nagsinungaling si Clifford Irving. Some other notable cases of forgery, itong Mormon Will of 1978, pati na rin itong arguably yung Hitler Diaries noong 1983. Yan. Okay, so much for history. Let's proceed to the development of writing. So writings are letters or symbols that are written or imprinted on a surface. Yan yung definition ng writing. So those letters, those symbols would represent sounds of a language. Yan. It consists of a message which conveys ideas to others, and it somehow gives a view on the man's desire to communicate or yung gusto niyang ipaiwatig. Yan. So the earliest known mediums of writing is yung paggamit ng walls o yung paggamit ng bato in writing sa walls ng cave. So yun, yan yung start ng petrograms or yung petroglyphs. Okay? So yung pagsusulat ng mga Aztecs, ng mga Sumerians at Chinese sa mga cave stones, yun yung naging simula ng writing. Yan, writing on stones. Okay? When we say cuneiform, yan, it is writing but with the use of wedge-shaped strokes. Yan. So ang cuneiform, the difference with petroglyphs, ang difference ng cuneiform sa petroglyphs is that mas pointed yung writing material at yung medium or kung saan sinusulat yung writings are done mainly on clay. Yan, yung mga clay na sa tagal ng panahon titigas. Okay, so yan yung cuneiform. Okay, next, parchment or vellum. Yan, parchment or vellum. Itong parchment are made from specially prepared and tanned skins of animals. Yan, kasagaran ana sheep, calves, mga baka or goats. So ang ilang mga panit, katong raw na panit nila, yun ang ginagamit na medium kung saan dun nagsusulat, nagko-convey ng information or nagko-convey ng message nung mga individuals from Pergamum sa Greece. Yan. So ginagamit nila yung skin ng animals, somewhat yung paper nila. Nagsisilbing medium or kung saan sila nagsusulat ng letters at symbols. Yan. That was during around 1500 BC. Also, around 1500 BC or 1500 AD pala, correction. Yan. Simula nung 13th, 14th at 15th century, naging sikat ang paggamit ng quill pens. Diba yung mga quills, yung hindi naman siya ancient, pero yung makalumang paraan ng pagsusulat, yung ginagamit nila sa pagsusulat, na kung saan merong balhibo coming from a bird, yan, and then yung tip ng kanyang feather is dinidip sa isang ink well. Yan, yung mga inks. Yan. Commonly known, itim talaga yan. And then, by dipping the lower tip ng quill, ginagamit nila yung quill as the modern day pencil or ball pen. And they use special and thick paper kung saan pwede nila isulat yung messages. The thing with it is that it is non-erasable, hindi siya ma-erase, and permanent na yung masusulat mo even though it is wrong. So yun yung naging primary tool for writing ng mga tao noong panahon. Sunod, during earlier periods, people used papyrus. Yan. Ito yung sinasabi kong paper na partner ng quill pen at nung inkwell. 'Di ba? Yung quill yan yung feather. Yan yung nagsisilbing pencil. Of course, meron kang ink coming from, some of them are from blood. Yan. Yung iba galing sa dugo, yung iba galing from other sources. And then, yung papel na sinusulatan yon were from papyrus or yung early forms ng paper which were commonly made from China or from Egypt. Yan. So, yung papyrus, yan yung ancient kind of paper. Yan. It's lightweight and was made from grasses called reeds. Yan yung papyrus. Okay? Sunod, please take note of the invention ni Cai Lun. Yan. So, itong si Cai Lun was credited as the inventor of paper which was made from bamboo strips. So, na-mold niya yan together with water. Yan, and of course, kailangan mo ng pasensya kasi mahaba-haba yung proseso. Yan ang naging contribution niya as the invent or earliest known invention of a writing paper. Yan, si Cai Lun. Yan. So, he used yung na-extract na strips ng bamboo from the mulberry tree. Yan. So, he used it, na-weave niya yung mga strips, which then he made it into paper, and then, the rest is history. Ginamit na yung paper na in-invent ni Kailun or ni Cylon in order to be used for scrolls. 'Di ba? Alam niyo naman yung scrolls. 'Di ba? Whether yung sa panahon ng mga ancient Chinese, even depicted sa mga animes, 'di ba? Merong mga scrolls. Yung papel na yon was the same with the idea na create or na-invent ni Cylon. Yan. Please take note of him nung 105 AD. Okay, so next, we need to distinguish the definition of falsification. So, falsification or falsifying, it refers to making a document appear to be genuine, which in fact it is not genuine because it was altered, it was created, and signed by the person who is not written on the said document. Diba? It's understandable. Pag hindi ikaw ang nakalagay sa document, pero ikaw yung pumirma, well, of course, that's falsification. May papel. Kumuha ka ng papel, sinulat mo ang pangalan ni Michael Jordan, tapos ikaw ang pumirma, at ginamit mo yan to other people in public or makakuha ng pera, well, that is falsification. Okay? Hindi ikaw yung nakalagay na individual sa papel, and then you used your signature, you used your handwriting, and you authorize it as yours. So, that is falsification. So there are two classifications of falsification. One is yung forgery, imitating something. Yan, or imitation. That's the first classification of falsification. The next is alteration. Okay? Let's differentiate both. When we say forgery, na kay ginasundog. For example, pirma ni Donald Trump. So you tried to copy the signature of Donald Trump. That is forgery. That's one kind or one class of falsification. The other class of falsification is alteration. Of course, when you alter, you change something. Siguro, in-erase mo, may dinagdag ka, may sinubstitute ka, or any other form. Yan. So, alteration, yan. For example, ang pera na o yung amount na nakalagay sa isang bank check, sabihin natin 100,000. Sabihin natin yan yung amount. 100,000. Pero dahil sa nakukulangan ka, you change it. Ginawa mong 4. Yan. Parang ganyan. Somehow like that. You added something. Okay? So, again, forgery. May sinuso ka or you're copying something, you're imitating something. When we say alteration, napakaraming kinds yan. But still, you change something into another form. Yan, may in-erase ka, or dinelete, may dinagdag ka, or may sinubstitute ka. Yan, example, yung kanina. Yung nakalagay sa cheque, 100,000. Yan. Sabihin natin ganyan, 100. So, gusto mong palitan yung denomination or yung amount nung nasa cheque. So, dinagdagan mo. Yan. Yan. Pasensya sa drawing, pero yan yun. Yan. Sabihin natin, pinalitan mo. 400. From 100, yung plain na number 1, ginawa mo 400. Okay? Yan. Parang dinagdagan mo lang ng 2 strokes. That is alteration. Kung forgery, sinusunod mo yung isang sample o yung tinatawag na exemplars. Okay? So those are the classifications of falsification. We have 4 reasons why people falsify documents. Nakalagay na dyan. First, monetary gain talaga yan. Kagaya ng example ko, kung ang original na amount sa cheque, yung nakasulat doon, 100,000. Yan. Pero dahil hindi ka satisfied sa 100,000, dinagdagan mo 400,000. Yan. Without authorization, of course. So it is falsification. Yan. Falsification yan. Sunod. One reason for falsification, you try to mislead an investigation. Yan. Pinapahirapan mo pa ang isang investigation which originally hindi naman about question document. Like for example, pagpatay. Namatay ang isang negosyante. Arguably, he was killed because he was trying to avoid certain conflicts with another businessman. But then siguro, pinatay siya and then gumamit ng forged signature sa kanyang suicide note. 'Di ba suicide note, may isusulat ka and then pipirmahan mo? What if the perpetrators used the same ball pen and tried to copy or imitate the signature of yung nasabi kong victim? Yan, in order to mislead an investigation. Another one is concealing a person's true identity. So, so concealing a person's true identity could be done first for legal purposes. Merong mga tao, siguro by the nature of their work, they don't want to be identified. Yan, for example, yung mga intel agents. They use a cover story using a fictitious name. So, ayun, gumagamit siya ng pekeng pangalan in order to hide their true identity. So, they would use a signature which is not theirs. It also goes the same from preventing true facts which may come out of light. So, gumagamit siya either to alter, yan, meron silang babawasan, or idadagdag na info. So, ulitin ko ang document is not the paper. The document is the contents of that paper. Kasi kung paper yan, kung sa evidence pa yan, that is yung autoptic or real evidence. So, kung document yan, you need a documentary evidence. The things that are being questioned sa question document examination are the contents on that paper. Yung mga symbols, yung mga letra, yung mga letra, yung mga numbers, those that would convey an information or would convey a message to another person. Yan yung document. So, there are multiple kinds of document, multiple classes of document, but yung general niyan, ito. First, a document can be questioned. When we say question document, any document which some issues has been raised or under scrutiny. Yan. So they would be subjected or they are subjected already to an examination. Yan. Will be subjected and is subjected to an examination. While a disputed document, they suggest na itong document is one thing while the other party suggests it is another one. And of course, kung may conflict, may argument. Yan. So, it still tackles on the contents of the document, but there are two parties who have conflicting claims, which is, of course, legally an argument. So, yan yung disputed document. So, to say it short, all disputed documents are question documents. Pero hindi lahat ng question documents, disputed documents. Okay? So those are the difference between the two. Okay? So nasa baba, nakikita nyo, classes of questioned documents. Yan, meron na tayo na-discuss ko kanina or last time. Holograph document. Yan. I think this classification or yung classes were discussed in the previous session. So ito naman, these are the classes of disputed document. Okay, so first, yung simple forgery. Yan. When we say simple forgery, ang gusto niyang explain is that yung signature na nagawa or that forged signature is yung random lang na ginawa. Yan, no attempt to copy the signature o yung genuine signature ng isang tao. You just randomly create your own signature. That is forgery. Yan. For example, ito yung signature line. Sabihin natin ang pangalan dito is pangalan ko. Simple forgery, you create your own signature. Yung random lang. Yan, parang ganyan. So you use another person's name in order to attain something with the use of a signature na hindi naman sa kanya and a signature na hindi naman a copy ng kanyang signature. You did not try to copy his signature. You just use a different form of signature. That is simple forgery. Okay? Sunod. A forged signature which closely resembles the genuine signature since they have been produced by tracing. That's your keyword. That is trace forgery, copying by means of tracing the original one. Okay? So, yan yung traced forgery. Three general classes lang kasi yan eh. Simple, traced, at simulated. Okay? So, again, simple forgery, kagaya yung example ko dito. Hindi mo pangalan, hindi naman pirma nung nasabing tao, but the method of doing it is that you created a different signature for him. Sa traced forgery, kinopya mo yung pirma nung nasabing individual by means of tracing it closely. In order for that signature that you traced to closely resemble of that genuine signature. When we say simulated or copied forgery, these are forged signatures which resemble the genuine signature and is done with the use of a freehand. Yung ano lang, normal lang. Yan. Oh, so to make it clear, ulitin ko simple forgery. You're using a copy of a yung facsimile or facsimile. Yan. You're trying to copy the genuine signature and somehow you reproduce it. Yan. When we say traced forgery, you are tracing it. Yung ginawa ko kanina, I stand corrected, that is simulated or copied forgery. Yan. Resembles the genuine signature pero done with freehand. So, ang keywords natin, simple forgery, yung simple lang. No attempt to copy, you just sign the document. Yun, yung kanina. Traced forgery, you trace it. Simulated or copied forgery from the word simulated. Try mo yan with freehand. You, yung parang do it yourself. Okay? So, those are the three general classes of a disputed document. Okay? So, any one of those could be done by a fictitious individual. Each one of those could be obtained by blackmailing or through cunning or trickery. And those who tried to forge these kind of signatures or documents would initially decline or would deny that their signatures or yung signature na ginawa is not genuine. I-deny na nila initially. But once pieces of evidence would point out that it is not a genuine document or not a genuine signature, then dun pa lang yan sila bibigay. Okay? So, here are the categories of a document. When we say general category, document receiving full circulation, yung, for example, mga reports, kung saan pwedeng ma-view ng karamihan. When we say limited forgery, documents from which wide circulation is unnecessary and only limited to a certain group. Yan. Or yung limited lang yung exposure. Commonly, drafts. Yan. So, a limited document, isipin nyo, draft. General document, yan na yung tapos na and pwede siya mabahagi sa napakaraming tao. Yan. For example, public documents. The other category or the third one, restricted document. It applies exclusively to documents na treated with confidentiality. Not for public use, only for those who have the need to know. Or yung authorized lang na makakita or makahawak ng nasabing document. So yan yung restricted document. Okay? Next, we will proceed to the kinds of document under the Philippine law. Yan, yung classification under our legal system. Okay, let's start with a public document. So a public document is any instrument or any document notarized by a notary public or a competent public official which by virtue of his authority, inire-require siya ng batas na pumirma dyan. Okay, for example, executive orders na nire-release ng either mayor or president. Kailangan ng publiko makita yun. At yung mga executive orders, they are posted sa newspapers and other mediums na ginagamit ng media. Yung pwede maibahagi sa publiko. And of course, sa pinakadulo niyan, nung pirma nung nasabing public official or notary public. Okay, so that is a public document. When we say official document, any instrument issued by the government or its agent or its officers having the authority to do so. And of course, they are authorized to issue. Best example ng official documents are those documents na ginagamit ng kapulisan. Except for the blotter report, yan yung may excerpt yan sila. All other documents which are not really for public consumption and of course bears the signature of the heads of offices, those are official documents. Okay? Commercial documents, yan naman yung mga documents na done or executed in accordance with commercial laws. Yan, or tax laws. Yan, yung done within the private sector din. But their main purpose is for commercial rights or any other commercial obligation. Yan. So, parte yan siya ng mercantile law. Okay? Disposition ng commercial entities, like for example, mga reports nila, yan, mga corporate reports, balance sheets, ayun, those are considered commercial documents once a signatory is present. Yan. Sunod, private document. Yan yung mga deeds, deed of sale, deed of transfer, yan. They are executed by a private individual without intervention, ulitin ko, without intervention ng notary public or any other person except yung private individuals. Yan. So, private document, they are executed or done by a private person which states an agreement towards another private person. Okay? So, ulitin ko. Public document, again, instrument or a document na nagre-require ng pirma ng isang notary public or ng public official. Commonly, publicly elected officials. Yan. Executive orders ng president. Yung mga pinanonotaryo nyo. Yan. At pinapasa nyo sa, sabihin natin sa government. Yan. Di ba? Yung mga waivers. Yan. Public document. Yung mga issuances ng government towards people. Yan. For example, police clearance. Di ba may nakapirma dyan na head of office? Mayor's permit. Di ba? Pinipirma ng isang competent public official, the mayor. And of course, it is somewhat a requirement by law. Yan. Also included sa public document, birth certificates. Okay? It's publicly issued and there is a story ng head of office which is a public official. Sunod, official document issued ng gobyerno papunta sa kapwa nila taga-gobyerno. Those documents which are issued officially to their agents or officers. At yung mga official na yon has the authority to do so with respect to their different mandates at different agencies. For example, report ng kapulisan sa Mama Sapano incident. Yung order para magsimula nung investigation was directed by the President. Inatasan niya si Chief PNP na magsimula ng report about the Mama Sapano incident. So, yung mga gumawa ng report, of course, mga kapulisan, senior officers of the police. And of course, sa pinakadulo nyo, or even sa introductory na parts ng report, merong mga pirma, mga signatories na public officials. Yan. Or yung mga mission orders na directed ng kasundaluhan, sabihin natin from a 3-star general down to a 1-star general. That is an official document. So yung official document, government to government. Yan. And of course, yung mga nakaka-receive nyon has enough authority to act upon that document. When we say commercial document, yung ginagamit basically under commerce or mercantile law. Yan, resibo. 'Di ba yung mga mano-manong resibo, meron pa yan ngayon na kung saan sinestate nila yung magkano yung binili, ilan yung binili. And 'di ba sa dulo, somewhat may pangalan ng establishment. Yung iba doon may pirma pa. Yan. Yung mga business receipts. Yan. They are done generally by private individuals which are basically for commercial rights or obligations. When we say private document done by private individuals, commonly mga deeds of sale yan. So private documents, please take note, wala nang pakialam itong si notary public. Yan. Kung walang intervention ng notary public or any other legally authorized person, then that is a private document. Common yan, agreement between two private individuals. Okay? So, those are the kinds of documents under our laws sa Philippines. Okay? So, sa question document examination, meron tayong 5 subject matters which hopefully would be discussed. Yan, lahat ng ito. So, of course, we have signature identification. Yan, sinabi ko na yun yung kinds. Traced forgery, simulated forgery. Of course, yung identification ng genuine at authentic signature. Pati yung mga spurious signatures. Yan, including simple forgery. Of course, handwriting identification. That's the second part. Kasama dyan yung mga fonts at mga styles ng pagsusulat. Yung direction ng pagsusulat. Okay? Kasama dyan. Sunod, typewritten or computerized documents. Yan. Included dyan, di ba yung birth certificate? Generally, yung font niyan is yung typewriter na font, yung Pika. Ayan. So, it includes also the spacing. Kasi ang typewriter, may fixed na spacing sa kanilang letters. So, there's a possibility na yung mga gustong manlin lang gamit ng typewriter, meron silang i-insert na mga letters which visually ma-identify. Also with computerized documents, for example, yung mga resibo sa supermarket. Yan. Di ba yung papel nila? So, it might have questions on the source and mismo yung papel. So also, sa typewritten or computerized document examination, dinidetermine din yung source ng ink Also, yung paper database. Sino bang manufacturer? Saan ba na manufacturer? Ano bang components? Yan. Watermarks are included if the document has watermarks and other standards na meron sa isang computer document o yung computer-generated document. Sa QD examination, of course, distinguishing alterations, determining whether or not may changes made sa isang document. May erasure? May obliteration ba? Or interlineations and substitutions? So, we'll try to explain each one of those in the coming weeks. Yan, yung mga terms na yan, interlineations, obliterations, alterations. Of course, we need to discuss counterfeiting. It is, of course, a crime. And so, sa counterfeiting, we could also determine ano yung characteristics ng banknote sa Pilipinas. Yan, ano yung mga security features na meron sa isang money o yung paper money. Yan, and how to determine which is the counterfeit money and which is the genuine na money. Yan, yung basic features ng banknotes and coins natin. We will be discussing that, okay? So, um, just wait for it for the coming weeks. We will have activities for those. So, on the next meeting, I will discuss about the categories of the QD examination, ano yung mga types of examination na ginagawa. And, of course, we have the procedures sa QD examination. Of course, together with the classes of QD examination. Yung two general classes. Okay, so that is all for today. Thank you for listening and just stand by for the next episode of this video discussion for our first exam. Okay, so thank you once again and have a good day.